and welcome back to part 5 of Castlevania Aria, where today we're wrapping up the underground. We've got two bosses here, one optional, one not. We're going to do the mandatory one first, because it leads to a power-up that's very helpful for this stage of the game, and just a really nice power-up for exploration to begin with. And you don't have to do what I'm about to do now, but there are these 3 optional challenge rooms to the right with this room, the lift, that you can take on. All of them have their own reward and their own little gimmick to them. Like this one, there's all these statues in the background that push their hand and foot forward every now and then. If you get touched by them when the hand or foot is forward, it does damage to you. It's crushing you into the foreground wall, essentially. Oh, this can be a little finicky, but you gotta kind of get a rhythm with it, because it's dependent on which direction Soma is facing where the ball's knocked, not your position to the ball. So if you hit it on a backswing, it'll count as you hitting it in front of you. So you have to kind of like get a rhythm, like a yo-yo almost with it. Oh come on, that should have hit the wall. There we go. And be careful going through it. All 3 of these rooms, you go straight through, and on the other side is just death. Oh, that's a very nice boost all around. It's a bit of a harsh drop on the defense, but yeah, sure, I'll take the risk. If you just race through into here, you'll get caught by them every time, so, you know, be wary. And there's more lubricants in here, which I know is supposed to be like a lubricante, but they just, I guess, ran out of letter space. Not to be confused with lube, with icante. I know it's a similar word, but no, it is an actual demon. The name makes sense. But if you just tap up or down on the D-pad when you're standing on the lift, you'll take it up or take it down. As I said, there's 3 rooms. None of them you have to do. It's entirely optional just for loot, but they are here. This room sucks, though, the Medusa heads. Look at this. This room tends to get me beat up a lot, because you only need to get turned to stone once, and then you'll get knocked by the spikes. Off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure what that switch does. I think this switch moves this so you can slide under it easier, as in changes which direction the conveyor belt's moving. But I'm not actually sure, because I've never not pressed it as I've passed it by. This blade here, Balmung, is a very good alternative to deal with a specific boss later on. As I've mentioned several times, there's one boss later in the game that's actually resistant to light, and it's one of the only exceptions in this game of an enemy that isn't, you know, just hard weak to light magic, making our current weapon less advisable to use. That weapon is a good choice. It's not the one I go with, because there's a weapon that, although is smaller and has a much smaller range and, you know, just doesn't have the spacing and width as that weapon does more damage and can be whipped out quicker, so I go for that instead. But that doesn't mean you have to go for it. If you don't want to, you don't have to. It's more than okay to play it safe when you get to that fight and pick the bigger weapon, because you can navigate it a lot. Oh, in this room, kill the beam skeletons first. Just do it. You don't really need to, because the puzzle goes over their heads, but it's more like for your the safety of mind. So you don't have to worry about if you fail going into the pits with all these beam skeletons. Because on your first time round, you might mess it up, because you might not realize that you can press directional buttons outside of the puzzle as it's moving between them. Because that's the general idea. You stand on this platform and it will move underneath one of these little statues. Then one of the directions will light, so you have to tap that direction, and then you can move on. In between the statues, you can correct your position. It won't punish you for moving outside of it. On your first run, you might not know that, but because of that, there's a point where it'll ask you to press right several times in a row, which I believe is this one. And it will make you run off the edge if you haven't been straight. Oh no, it's not. It is the last one. But there's a point where you have to press right a bunch of times, and if you haven't been correcting yourself between them, you're screwed. I kind of do it subconsciously now is the problem, which is why I lost track of where I was. It's an unfortunate habit. Once you've done something enough times or solved the puzzle enough times, you do tend to do it subconsciously without thinking. Sure, I'll chuck on the rare ring. Not that it means anything. But that's all the 3 rooms, so I'm going to start heading back. The only thing I want to quickly talk about before I cut, because I'm going to save before we proceed onwards, because the next boss is actually kind of tough, is that these beam skeletons are a great grinding spot if you are struggling with the next boss. I think Death's harder, in my opinion, but this boss can give you trouble, so I'll see you in a sec. Off screen, I got the killer Mantle, which was pretty nice. I was literally just going that, which, as I've said before, I wanted to get Killer Mantle, not because it leads to any kind of super weapon or anything like that, but because there's one specific enemy in late game that I want to show off how you kill it, and it requires the Killer Mantle to show off. But when you're ready, ride the lift all the way down and head left. And you'll see a staple of the series, a boss that appears in most games, the Giant Bat. For about 2 seconds. Yeah, they kind of fake you out. Aria of Sorrow was the first Castlevania to felt like really start experimenting with new ideas for bosses. The way this works is that the boss is technically in the background and you're hitting the eye. When you break or destroy the eye, it will move to the other eye and you'll enter the second phase of the fight. The way this first phase is, it's just constantly trying to grab you and hit you. If it does insane damage for this stage. It will take off like 100 per hit. I didn't get the show off too much there because we did so much damage because, this weapon's so ridiculously overpowered. But you can, when the fists aren't being swung around, when they're just, wow, it's dead already? Holy shit. I've never killed the fight that fast. What? Wow. I'm used to that fight taking a lot longer. Huh. Anyway, we get Giant Bat from this statue, which is one of the best skills in the game. Because you just tap R and you move faster and you fly, and you're at crawling speed. I'll talk about this boss more in a second. We got a cutscene. Oh. Jay, what's wrong? You look pale. Don't worry, just now, all of my memories came flooding back. What? It seems that your dark power triggered the return of my memories. Just like I guessed, I have quite an extensive history with Dracula. I thought so. My real name is Julius Belmont. I am a descendant of the clan that has fought against Dracula for ages. And the person who destroyed Dracula in 1999 was... Yes, it was me, but there were others who assisted me. So if Dracula is revived again, just as it's written in the prophecy, then I must destroy him. It is my destiny. You haven't met a man named Graham yet, have you? Graham? Oh, you mean the missionary, right? I met him a little while ago, but when he saw my face, he turned and ran. He told me that he was Dracula. I did sense Dracula's power at work within him, but it's difficult to believe that he's Dracula. Rather, I think... No, forget it. There's nothing more than a hunch. Huh? Assuming that he is Dracula, I won't be able to kill him yet. Why not? I need my weapon. Your weapon? Yes, it is a whip that was handed down to me. It's called the Vampire Killer. In 99, I sealed it in this castle to weaken his spirits and magical powers. That means it's in this castle somewhere. Yes, I know exactly where it is. I'll go and get it now. Alright, please be careful. Pray that my hunch proves to be wrong. Farewell for now. I haven't actually checked in hard mode to see if you can find Vampire Killer anywhere, but it's not anywhere in normal mode. You can't find it anywhere. Despite the fact he says it's somewhere in the castle, I've never found where that somewhere could be. And that cutscene is also your giant foreshadowing, because the next mandatory boss is going to be climbing up the tower to face off with Graham. So they need to tell you now, oh, there's things you should be doing and things you should be aware of to get the intended true ending. Heading up here though, there is a succubus and a Lilith. Grind out that succubus now, because it's a very safe location to do so. Just grind it out and get succubus, because you need it for that true ending. And this is a really nice thing that you get that boost even if it's a drop in luck. It's very nice to like beeline out and go and get it. Unfortunately, it's not like, say, Symphony of the Night, where if you get a cloak accessory, it actually changes Alucard's cloak. I can't until I got it. It did take me a hot minute. Thankfully, not too long, but it did take me a minute, so I decided to cut it out. But now we have all three. We have the head, then the flame demon, the giant bat, and the succubus. They're the three you want. But now we're kind of done here. And can you see what I mean? When in the previous video, I talked about how when I was getting like into this game and giving it a go, a lot of people kept on telling me that this is the worst area in the game, the arena. They even tell me that they always dread returning to it every time they do a playthrough. They genuinely hate the arena, and it's something that sometimes puts them out of the mood from playing the rest of Aria of Sorrow, despite the fact everyone can agree this is like the second best Vania at least. Some people prefer it over Symphony, which I personally think is madness, but I get it. It's a very like controlled, concise, but very, very high quality Castlevania. While Symphony of the Night's sheer scale and size has a lot of like misgivings here and there. But as a whole, I still think it's a far better experience than this, in my opinion. But I'm getting off topic. A lot of people kept on telling me that this was like the bad zone. This is the one area of the game they don't like. And I genuinely don't understand why. I don't know if I missed something, or if there's like some great secret, or if it turns into hell in hard mode, or if it's just one of those things where it's like, you know how in some things, some areas only become dreaded because when we first played the game when we were kids, they were hard. And it's only when we're older we go back and go, oh, actually, it wasn't that bad. Sort of like Sandopolis in Sonic 3, where it's like when we were kids, Sonic, that was a nightmare. Like, everyone dreaded it because no one knew what to do in Sandopolis. But when you're older and you know what you're supposed to do, it's really not that bad anymore. I still don't really like Sandopolis, but that's just because it's built into me as a kid. Well, I hated it when I was a kid. But yeah, I can't help but wonder if it's like that, where, because I hear a lot of people struggle with the fight against death as well when they were kids. And it's like, it was one of those things where because it was a struggle, it became like unbearable. But when you're older and you have a bit more, you know, patience, you can see what you're expected to do a lot more, so you don't get beat up as much. And keep in mind, this is coming from someone who, as you might have noticed, is a very, like, not patient player of any Metroidvania. I like to see how fast I can go and build up a momentum. But I do it cautiously enough that I don't end up getting wrecked and just die a whole bunch. I mean, I haven't died yet in this Let's Play. Touch wood. This is where I'm going to get caught off guard by by a certain boss fight later on. Because there's only, like, of what's left, there's only one boss fight that I'm considering a threat. Like, there's 4 bosses left, there's the other optional boss, and then there's the 3 main ones left of what's left of the main story. And it's like, of the 4 left, there's only one that I'm even remotely wary could kill me. Because the other ones, I've done enough times for other reasons that I understand the momentum and how they work. Especially because 2 of them are part of the boss rush, the optional boss rush in this game. And so I've done it a number of times, getting fast runs on that. But down here, if you tuck down, you find the underground cemetery, which is an entirely optional area. Your only reason for doing this is that on the other side, you get the last missing book. Well, you get access to the book because you get access to an ability which allows us to go get said book. So you can get the last hints if you're not following any kind of guide, or, you know, just worked it out yourself. As I said, you might have just worked out the twist yourself at this point and what Julius was hinting at to know why you need those specific 3 abilities, meaning making the books worthless. Because once you clock onto what the twist is, the book, you don't need the book anymore. Getting the Were-Dragula is kind of nice, or Jaguar, not Dracula. But this area, all it houses is a couple enemies and a boss, and then once you beat the boss, on the other side of it is the last boss tied field ability. Like where you beat a boss and then your reward is a real good field ability. I say lots in like a loose sense because like if you're going for the true ending, when you beat Graham you get another field ability per se, but it's not a like built-in field ability where it's just something you have. It's just a new soul for you to use that happens to be a reward for beating the boss, so it's a bit different. But this is Legion, a bit of a mainstay for the series, starting with I want to say it was Symphony of the Night was his first appearance. I haven't played Rondo in a very long time, but I don't think he's in Rondo. But Legion, yeah, it's just a absolute mountain of corpses. Something worth mentioning though, this is the only missable soul in the game, and I mean entirely missable soul. If you don't kill Legion in a certain way, he will not drop his soul, and it's the only time you fight Legion. He doesn't become a normal enemy later in the game or anything like that. So if you miss it, your only option, assuming you haven't saved over it, is to reload your save to get it, or if you have, you're getting it in New Game Plus, my friend. You can only get 99% in this game. What you need to do is remove all of the corpses from the core before you kill the core. If any of the corpses surrounding its body still exist, when you kill the core, it will not drop the soul, which is why I've got being slightly careful here. Only when all the pieces are broken should you be prioritizing the core. Which, to be fair, this boss doesn't have that much health. It's kind of an easy boss as a whole. The main thing is that it's just you're in a big square and it will constantly chase you, so you have to kind of circle around with it. But you see, because we did that, we got Legion. As I said, that is the only missable soul in this game, so be sure to get it. Even if you're not intending to get 100% right now, still get it just in case you ever come back and say, like, yeah, I might as well try and get 100%. Surprised I still haven't got the Ripper Soul, considering how many of them I've killed. But if you head way over here, you'll get, I believe it's called Galamoth, which is a reference to a spin-off called Kid Dracula, where he was the final boss. Yeah, recognize places in which time has been stopped. That's a very weird, description for what basically should be said you can't be affected by time. There's a specific enemy, a chrono mage, that we encountered much earlier on, but every time we entered the room, it pulled up a big clock and it warped us out the room. That was it rewinding time to get us out the room, to get us away from it. Now, if we return there, it won't be able to do that to us because we, I don't know, recognize time, I suppose, when it should just say we're immune to time effects. That would make a hell of a lot more sense. But yeah, if you go there, on the other side it leads to another room, and in that room is the last missing book. And that is, like I said, the 3 books that you need, per se, if you haven't figured it out, to get a hint of what you need to do before you face Graham at the top of the tower. Because that's what he's waiting for us. He's just chilling there now, waiting for us to arrive and face him. And Graham will be your final boss if you're not going for the true ending. Because we are, there'll be more beyond him. But Graham does have kind of an extensive fight. He actually has 3 phases because of the fact he could be a final boss to some people. And in the boss rush ends at him. So they just make it a bigger deal. But anyway, I'm going to cut again, and it's going to be traveling quite a distance, so I'll probably put an annotation on the map of where I'm going. But we're going to go find that Chrono Mage. Way back over here, now that we have Galamoth, so we're missing one more field ability, but don't worry about that. I'm going to show where it is, and it's an amazing ability to have, and it will straight up replace Giant Bat once you've got it and got the true ending. But over here, the Chrono Mage can't mess with us anymore. See? So you're free to kill him. And he does have his own soul, like, you know, every single other enemy in the game. So if you can kill him a bunch, he will drop time powers, which basically becomes the stopwatch in any Classicvania, where you spend magic to freeze any enemy that is not immune to time manipulation. Bosses are, and most major enemies are, so it's not too effective. But for dealing with like basic mooks or grinding out souls, it can be kind of nice to have to just activate and hold things in place whilst you grind on them to kill. Like, off the top of my head, I don't know if either the Final Guard or Shadow Guards are, which are very late game enemies that have an annoyingly low drop rate despite the fact they're very beefy. Up here is the Daneslith, not to be confused with that weird dude from Genshin. Like the ultimate magic sword. I believe the way this sword works is that instead of it being based off your attack, it's based off your magic in terms of its stats. Not that it matters, because it's still not as good as what we've got. But we've got all 3 ancient books now, which, like I said, describes the 3 souls you need when you reach the top floor of the tower. But now that we have the Giant Bat, we can finally access the top floors of the tower, which means if you're ready and you have everything you need, you can push towards what will be the normal route's final boss. As I've said before, if you're not fast to the true ending, this is the grand finale, which is why this area treats it as the last area of the game. There's a lot of very powerful enemies here. Like, you've got to see the aesthetic in the background as the fire effect, the introduction of Final Guards, which really hammer it home, especially if you've played Symphony of the Night. You know Final Guards means last zone. Which is, I think, it's a nice way of doing it. It's a nice trick, because as I've said, this isn't actually the true final area. But if you're unaware of the foreshadowing and what the game's hinting at, and the fact that there is a true ending beyond this, this game will trick you into thinking this is the last area because of those Final Guards. Because they blocked the room to the final boss in Symphony of the Night. So you're used to the idea, or familiar to the idea, of Final Guards means final area. Up here is Gungnir, which is another spear-based weapon, so you know how much I don't really like that. And now that we've got Giant Bat, back in that open tower that was like next to the warp room closest to Hammer's shop, you can now get that weapon that's up there if you want. Additionally, now we've got Giant Bat, we can finally get that weapon that's tucked outside the save room in the castle corridor. You know, like just after the first boss of the game, I believe. So there are a few things you can now go back and pick up. I won't be bothering, at least not in this recording, maybe in the next one, I haven't decided yet. But they are there, it's just neither of them are that great, I don't think. There's also an armor set you can pick up in the castle corridor that was like in an upper optional room. But that's another one where it's like, you have way better. There's no reason for you to go back and get it at this point. This area is real damn dangerous though. The warp point and the save room are a little far away from each other. The warp room is actually to your right. It's actually beneath us, I believe. If you hug the right wall, there's a bunch of doors on this right, like, shaft of the tower here. And, like, in the middle of it, there's a door that'll lead to the warp room. But the save room's a lot higher up. You have to kind of survive the gauntlet a little bit to get it. Actually, I'll show you where the warp room is. It's just here. It's just this room's a nightmare, which is why I didn't want to stick in here too long. But you can go the other way and, like, come through it. Which isn't a bad shout. There is, like, the other route is probably just a little bit safer. It's just you have to climb through all these lubricants to get here instead of just descending when you come the other way. Ow. These enemies are just annoying. Thankfully, they don't inflict status conditions, but still. This is kind of the gauntlet, this bit here. Where it's going to be like an S-shaped shaft going up and around. These succubuses are annoying with how they can grab you. You got bales in here as well. Like, there's a lot of enemies, and it just goes up in, like, this snake-like design. How? Get away. Climbing all the way up. But my earlier argument of maybe the reason why people don't like the arenas because how tough it is doesn't make sense because I never hear people complain about this area, and I think it's harder. If you go up, that will lead to the save point. And lead the way towards Graham, the actual, like, you know, the final boss if you're not going for the true ending. But you want to detour down this way because there's a little hole you can jump down, which leads to the enemy that has why we get the killer mantle. This specific enemy has 9,999 health and defense. So you're only ever going to do 1 damage. In fact, I can prove it. If we go to the encyclopedia on this PS4 version, I'm playing it with my PS5, but it's the PS4 version. If we can find Iron Golem somewhere here, give me a second. So I'm trying to. There's Flesh Golem, so yeah, we've passed it. 'Cause it's going to be beneath us. Stolus, Lubricant. There it is. 9,999 health, tolerant to everything. You're not going to kill this thing. You're not going to do any more than 1 damage. Unless you whip out, where are you? The Killer Mantle. There you are. Killer Mantle replaces its health with its magic. It has 0 magic, it dies. So if you're after its soul, yeah, that's how you're doing it. You're magic spamming and doing that. But way back here is the Hippogriff, which is this version's game of the Rock Feather. You tap L whilst you're in the air, you'll skyrocket straight up. You can spam it. It's the Circle of the Moon approach to it, where you can keep spamming it as long as you keep hitting the button. So you can scale any height. And I'm glad they went back to the Circle of the Moon version of it, because I fucking hated Harmony Dissonance's version. Harmony Dissonance, firstly it was awkward to use. It was down, up, jump. You had to like go down, up, jump. This sword is the one I'm going to be using for that boss that's immune to, or not immune, resistant to Holy much later on, by the way. That weapon there. But you had to do down, up, jump, and you couldn't spam it. You could only use it once, so you could only cover so much height, and it was awkward to use. And it was just, I didn't like it. It was awkward to use, and it was nerfed anyway. Whilst in Circle of the Moon, I believe it's R when you're in the air, and in this, it's just L when you're in the air. So it's just very spammable. But I come in from a higher point, but this is the shortcut back to the clock tower. The one that we showed off in a previous video as well. That's like another tease to the top floor. And I'm going to be wrapping it up because the save room literally is right next door to where we are right now. It's just above us. So next time on Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, we're going to take down Graham at the top of the tower and find out what the true path really is. But until then, you guys take care now. Peace.